Hi, I'm Ed.
And I'm Kathy. We would like to welcome you to our channel and invite you to come along on our journey. This is the story of Make Each Day Count.
I'll be reading from my notes. Occasionally, you'll see me looking down. It's just because it's very emotional sometimes to do this story, and I want to make sure that I keep the timeline correct. So, we'll start off with this is the story of how our life changed in a 24-hour period. It's a very moving story about faith, resilience, and the eternal bond of our marriage. We literally have lived our marriage vows in the last year. You remember, for better or worse. We will not be discussing whether or not we took the jab or what medicines that we took. The story is meant to share the experiences along the way and hope it helps somebody in the same position that feels like they're alone. We'll also not be using the names of our friends, doctors, hospitals, facilities, and other things that we've used in this story. You know who you are, and we're truly blessed that you were in the positions you were at the time, or the outcome would have been very different for sure. For the ones of you who question faith, please tell me at the end of this series how all this could have happened by chance. As for Kathy and I, we know exactly how it happened. We'll not be discussing politics, so just please enjoy the story and relate to it as you will. This is our story. We celebrated our anniversary every year on Veterans Day like we always do. We're not military veterans, however, we're as patriotic as you're going to find. Kathy and I are both retired from public positions. I was a police officer for 25 years, and Kathy was a 911 operator half of her career and an advanced clerk for the other half for a sheriff's department. I'll tell you more about that story later. As we did every year, we celebrated with our families and friends on our anniversary. Little did we know this would be the last one that we celebrate as usual. Again, I'll tell you this is hard to do, so bear with us and we'll make it through it, I promise. A few days later, while Kathy was at work, there was a man who came in her office. Keep in mind it was cold outside this time of year. The man was sweating and told him that he decided to come by and get his pistol permit on his way home because he had just been diagnosed with, the C word. We can't talk about it because they'll probably take this video down. But you know what we're talking about. Well, Kathy and I both started feeling bad on November 19th of 2021. Kathy and I went to the doctor and were told that we had it. On November 23rd, we were sitting on the couch in our living room, right here in this very spot.
Yeah.
That's why we chose this
Just
place
like
to do it.
this.
My son and his girlfriend came by to visit with us because they knew we were sick. She's a nurse, and at the time he was a police officer, and he lives next door to me. Kathy was complaining at the time that she was having a hard time breathing, so the nurse took her O2 readings and she was in the 30s. This was the first time I was afraid that she was going to die. I knew that that was way too low. The nurse and my son put her in the car and took her immediately to the hospital. She was almost immediately put on a ventilator. This is where it gets really interesting. My memory is a little foggy about how I ended up on the phone with one of my friends. We'll call him JP, who was instrumental in the future events. All right, I'm gonna give you a little backstory. I'm gonna look at my notes to make sure I get it all right. JP's somewhat of a local celebrity. As I stated earlier, I was a police officer. The way I met JP was he was the Grand Marshal for our parade that year. He was detained in traffic and couldn't get across town to get to the parade. So dispatch asked me would I pick him up and bring him to the high school, which I did. And along the way, JP and I started talking and discovered we were both aviation nuts. So we talked about airplanes and flying and stuff, and I told him I would pick him up at the other end and I'd take him back to his car and we could talk some more. And I did. So I took him back to his car, met his wife, and we decided that we would like to go out to dinner. So I told him I would get my wife and we would meet him there. So we did. And we're
This
still.
was 10 years ago.
This was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We're still close friends today.
Yeah.
Okay, change the subject for just a little bit, and I'm going to tell you another backstory so you can kind of relate. At some point during this series, you'll kind of see it all come together and why we know this was not just a coincidence that all these people come into our life at the same time. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer back in 2018. This whole thing is emotional for me to talk about for my dad and my wife. I was talking to JP about it, and he told me that he had a good friend that I needed to talk to. So we'll just call him Dr. Ken. Ken's also a pilot. I know it's hard to believe that a bunch of pilots keep talking to each other, but he was a doctor, and he thought that's who I needed to talk to. So I talked to Dr. Ken and told him what was happening and who would he recommend had it been him that was diagnosed with cancer. He immediately told me who he would use and gave me his number, and also set up the meeting just so I could talk to him. And we'll just call him Dr. H. All right, let me move down my notes a little bit. All right, so I called Dr. H to try to get his office to try to get an appointment, and we were told there were no appointments. He's a good doctor, and it's hard to get in with him. So I called Ken back and told him that we couldn't get an appointment. He said, give him a few minutes, he'd call me back. Well, he did in about 10 minutes, and he said, you have an appointment at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I called my dad and told him what had happened, and we went to see the doctor the next morning at 10 o'clock. Well, Dr. H took us and met with us and treated us like we were family and like he'd known us forever, and really treated my dad well, as he did all of us. Dad decided that he wanted to go to MD Anderson in Houston, Texas, which, if everybody knows, is a super good cancer hospital, just like the one in Atlanta. So they were doing experimental drugs, and Dad decided that if he didn't have long to go, that he wanted to try everything he could. So we called out, and again was told that there was no room in this program. So we called Dr. H and told him that there was no room and couldn't get him in. He said, give him a few minutes and he would call us back. Starting to sound familiar, isn't it? So in just a little while, he called us back and he said, hey, have your dad out at MD Anderson on Thursday. We've got him a slot. Again, you tell me how all this happens. So we got Dad in the program, went out, and they started doing the experimental stuff with him and treating him. And the first doctor that we had seen told my dad he had 6 weeks to 6 months. Well, we got an extra year and a half with him. My dad died in February of 2020. So without all these things happening and all these people being put in our lives, this would have never happened.
Right.
So that's a little bit on the backstory. Okay, on to the story. I was talking to JP the night that my son and his girlfriend took her to the hospital, and was telling him that she'd been taken to the local hospital and what kind of condition she was in. So he told me, he said, you need to have her at this other hospital, which was better equipped for it. And we'll just call that hospital GV. So GV is where Ken works. So I didn't know it, but JP and Ken were talking to each other when I was talking to JP. So I told him that we had already called and there were no beds. So Ken says, give me a minute, I'll call you back. So sure enough, about 10 minutes, he calls back and he says, hey, I got the orders in. They're gonna move her in a few hours and we'll have her in GV in a bed. So I wasn't sure how he pulled that off. Anyway, sure enough, about 4 o'clock in the morning, they moved her in a special ambulance. I didn't know at the time that not just a regular ambulance could move her. It has to be a specialized one that has a ventilator and stuff in it. So they moved her, and things were much better from there. But originally, I got a phone call after they got her there in the first few hours. And the doctor told me that she probably was not going to make it. It was less than a 10% chance, and wanted to know would I sign a DNR. And for the ones of you that don't know, a DNR is a do not resuscitate. So I was very sick at the time and pretty foggy. And
He had COVID at the same time I did.
Yeah, and I really didn't understand
Yeah.
what they were telling me at the time. But that's why my son and his girlfriend were at the hospital with her. They went to the same hospital she was at and was standing there. They just didn't hear the conversation. So anyway, I told the doctor that I didn't really understand, and he said, well, she's probably not going to make it, and for us to try to resuscitate her, that they would probably end up breaking bones, and it would be very painful if she was to wake up during it. Still, I don't understand all that. I don't know how you're on a ventilator and you wake up. But anyway, I told him that I didn't want to do it and to go ahead and do the DNR. So luckily, I had enough about me at the time to know that I needed to call my sons and tell them what I had just told the doctor to make sure that I was okay, because I was still real foggy. Well, I told my son that was there with the nurse, and he couldn't believe that I had told him that, and explained to me what I had just told him. And then it dawned on me that I didn't want to do that and didn't really understand why I had done it. So I told him to get the doctor back on the phone, and they had to have a second witness. And anyway, I recalled the DNR, and almost immediately my son fires the doctor and tells him he's not to be back around his mother, which now is funny. It was not funny at the time.
Which was a very good choice to do. We didn't realize it at the time, but it was very smart to do that.
So anyway, this starts going on for weeks. But after we get the new doctor, which was awesome, she was the best doctor ever in my opinion. But she would call me every day, almost at 1 o'clock exactly every day, and give me an update on where she was at, what the next procedure was, what they expected. Just a super doctor. And Dr. Ken, I'm sure, will never take credit for it, but I can't imagine he didn't have something to do with this awesome doctor being assigned to Kathy. So anyway, this is kind of where we got to, and this is where we're going to stop for the first part. We don't want this to run on forever, and we've already been on for 13 minutes. This is a series. We're going to carry you through, all the way through to her being sitting here today.
Thankful and grateful.
It will take several recordings of this to get that far, to explain to you all the things that happened, all the miracles, in our opinion, that happened, and all the people that was put into our life that we're so grateful for. She continues to recover today. It's a slow go. This will be 1 year today when this video releases that she was put in the hospital. So 1 year later, here she is,
here,
recovering, still on oxygen, still has all kinds of medical issues, but she's here. So we will release the next one a week after this one, and then every week after as we can, until we catch you up to where we are now. Thank you so much for watching.
yes.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel and you're new to it, please subscribe. It helps us out to get this out to other people that may need encouragement, because I'm going to tell you, people in this position without encouragement,
They need it.
and people to help them through it, I don't know how they do it. It is so hard, even when you have support like we've had. I just can't imagine trying to do this alone or go it alone. We hope this encourages people, helps people, and if you need any help or any encouragement or have any questions about how we did something or where we go from now or anything, just leave it in the comments below. I promise we will answer all of them and get back to you. Just stay tuned for the rest of them. Like it, subscribe to our channel. Please push the bell button. If you ring the bell, every time we release one, it will immediately let you know that we've released the next one. Let us know. There's going to be a lot of these, so leave it in the comments and tell us what specifically do you want to know that we've left out so far, or pretty much anything. But we're an open book. We're hoping that this helps somebody. We were told that we needed to do this more than once by people we didn't even know. So we're not YouTube polished stars or anything. We're just doing this to try to help other people and try to enjoy doing this along the way as a journey. We're going to have quite the journey for the next couple of years because we've realized
Our lives are changed.
time is short. Don't put off what you can do today till tomorrow, because you don't know if you have tomorrow. And that's why we say make each day count. Our email address is makeeachdaycount365@gmail.com. Well, we make each day count every day, and we will continue to do so because we just don't know how many we have. So hope this encourages you guys. We will let the next one out next week, and I have pretty much dominated the conversation today, which won't happen in the rest of them. We just kind of wanted to give you the opening of the story and kind of where we're going from here. And so I'm going to let Kathy talk for a second, see if she wants to say anything.
Well, I just am so thankful to be here, especially being a year. It's just hard to believe that a year's went by. And I'm sorry I don't talk a lot because I did have a trach and my voice is very weak, but I am capable of talking. So, but I do thank each and every one of you, and just subscribe to our channel and we'll continue with our journey each and every day. Thank you and God bless you.
All right, till next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Make each day count.
That's right.